Once you have the starter out, you can pull the dust cover, which I have right there, if it'll focus up. And then you have 2 bolts on the bottom side of the engine and 4 bolts that will be going into the transmission. And you can undo that. And then there's also that right there, which is a oil dummy light. There's 2 wires that go to the compressor there. Then otherwise it'll come underneath here and come out. And then, like me, you can have all of your wiring hanging off the side. And all you gotta do now for pulling the motor is the engine mount. There's 3 bolts on each side. I have them 2 of each side off. And then you go underneath, and you can see right in this little window there. You take it, you spin the motor over. You're gonna wait until you see those 3 bolts, 1 bolt at a time, come up, and then take that off. And then there's gonna be roughly 4 more bolts to transmission to engine. 2 basically on each side of the head, 1 right there behind on the top, and then 2 on the other side too. And after that, your motor should pull out. To get torque converter bolts off, you're gonna have to see right here. They're in the little cavity where the starter is. And to get it to turn, you take a deep socket, more than likely, on top of a long extension, and just turn it over like this, and then wait for one to come into view, which you can kind of see right there. And once one comes into view, you gotta hold the breaker bar or whatever steady, and then break those loose. And they're usually on there pretty tight, just because they're Loctited on if they've never been apart, or if they've been apart and put together by a good mechanic. Kind of big hurdle setback. That bolt got busted somehow. It looks like it's missing like a whole wall, so I'm gonna have to go in there with a file and possibly a die grinder so that I can clean up enough of the 2 edges so it looks more like this instead of like that. You can kind of tell here what exactly happened. It just busted completely out. Whoever's there didn't replace it or put it back or do anything correctly. This is just kind of what the bolt was supposed to look like. And there's 6 of them. You'll see them all pretty easily. I think I mentioned 3 a couple times, but I was wrong on that. But a little bit of filing, a little bit more patience than I have, and got it out. As you can see, I have the engine hoist here set up. There's a floor jack with a wood pad on the transmission. Everything is disconnected from what I can tell. I'm gonna see if I can do a decent time lapse of me just pulling it apart. There's a hair of a crack in there. Maybe you can see in there slightly. So I think it's gonna come out pretty well. I made sure to PB blast the pins right in here a couple times just to make sure that they'd come out free enough. So I'm gonna set it up on a tripod, and you're gonna see me struggle to get it out. So a quick little rundown of what I'm making these videos about, since I did a poor job talking about it in either video. I got this 2002 GMC 1-ton from construction company for $200 after it blew the rear end and they were tired of it. But everything else had worked beforehand, and I don't know how I stole it so cheap. But the plan for this engine and video series is to pull the motor and go through everything I have to do and the prices to make it happily running in a 77 Corvette with a turbo 400. The plan before it goes in fully is to do some basic mods like cam, headers, and maybe a throttle body. Nothing too deep for now. Basically, I want to go through everything I wish I knew before diving in to my first LS swap. Well, it came out pretty easily. I just made sure to PB blast these multiple times beforehand just so that could help soak in. And the last guy was nice and put anti-seize on them. Maybe it'll come in right there. We'll go through the spark plugs, kind of see what that looks like. But don't be like me use your brain. Deal with the hoses beforehand, the hydraulic hose here for the power steering and the oil cooler line here, because I thought I'll be easy, I'll deal with them as they come out, and you can kind of tell by the piles of sawdust that didn't quite work as well as I thought it was going to. And so one problem I had was when I pulled it apart, I had 5 of 6 bolts that came out. Well, there's one still lodged in there that broke off, and you can kind of see it up here on the top of the bell housing. It got thrown up here into this little cavity, and on top of that, we're gonna need a new flywheel because it's pretty well torn up, beat up, and don't know how it started. All right, well, since I have the 6-liter out, the LS motor, LQ4, I'm gonna go and pull the transmission. You can either pull this to do it for a swap. I'm personally gonna pull it and sell it, get some of the money back, or get more money than I bought this thing for, and sell it off. And it worked fine. So I'm gonna go about showing you how to pull it off. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go here, make sure to get the exhaust manifold bolts off. I'm gonna go underneath and take it apart from where it connects to the rest of it, where these two sides connect. I don't know if it's visible from up here, but we're going to pull that out. On top of that, you're going to want to disconnect. It's pretty easy to see from up here what bolts or what lines you're going to have to take off. There's one front and rear of it, the transcooler lines. I don't believe there's anything else on this side worth noting. But on this side, you're going to have a lot more. This is where your computer and wiring harness that comes down the back side of the motor over top the transmission is going to come and collect. And you'll have to disconnect all that. All right, while we're under the car here quick, you're going to have to disconnect a couple wires here. There's one right there. Let's see if I can get this to work out well. One right here, one right there. And then, got something in my face. One here and here. Sometimes these are glued in. Mine wasn't, so it was easy to pull out. But you're going to have to come in here, take these 2 bolts out, right there and there. Pull that off. And then to disconnect the shift linkage here, let's see if I can find it. Right here, you just go in here with a flathead screwdriver and kind of twist and pry that off. And then come to this point. See if it shows up. If I get it to show up. Not quite easily for you. This in here, what you're going to have to do is you're going to take some needle nose or a flathead and kind of pinch that clip. Let's see if I can get it to clean up a little bit. To pinch that to get that to come out and clear. When it comes to the motor, there's a little transmission. There's a bolt up on top of this wiring harness clip. You're going to have to take that off, and then everything will be disconnected from the transmission if you include those transcooler lines up here. Otherwise, it'll start to be support. What I'm going to do is those exhaust manifolds are taken off, or the downpipes on both sides. I'm going to come back here. You can kind of see it in this little gap, maybe, right here. There's the connections between the two. I'm going to take those free, drop the front half of the exhaust out so that it's easy to work the transmission around. And then there's going to be the trans cross member. I'm doing this on the floor, so I hope you can understand. Mine is bolted from the bottom. Some of them are bolted sideways through it. But you're going to take the 4 bolts off for this style and drop that out. And then the transmission should come right down with it. Make sure to pull the drive shaft. Mine's it's got a carrier bearing in the middle, so I'm going to have to pull that, disconnect the carrier bearing, and then pull it. You should probably just have to be able to disconnect the 4 bolts that are sitting on the rear of the drive shaft and pull it out. Make sure to have something to catch all the transmission fluid that's going to be coming out while you're taking the drive shaft out. Otherwise, you'll have a big old mess, and that's never fun to clean up.